Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. Back again, the best two are back in the house. We are rolling into August. I believe there are some preseason games coming this weekend, so it's very, very exciting times for the NFL season kickoff. James, how you doing today, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Good to be back on the show, and like you said, preseason action coming up, which isn't necessarily that relevant, but obviously training camp well underway. We're getting some news, chance for everyone to overreact to videos of players catching passes against no one. It's good to be at this time of year. Obviously, we wait a long time for football to arrive, and obviously the preseason games are largely irrelevant. But I think I've heard a few teams are going to be playing some starters a little bit more than they would normally. I think the Bengals against the Commanders, that came out that there was potentially going to be playing some starts more than usual. I don't know what that means. Maybe usually is 3 snaps and this is going to be 4. But we'll see. Obviously, good to be back at this time of year though.
Yes, mate. And with the news, we did get a contract extension today. So Kyren Williams, the absolute stud, as we're allowed to say that because Mags is not on the show tonight. Received a 3-year deal. I think it was 23 million guaranteed. So sort of a decent-ish contract, especially if someone, with his low draft capital, someone that really worked into that role and has been, fantastic for the last couple of years. RB7, I think he was the last 2 seasons running. I think I saw earlier. So sort of deserved the contract, and I think that secures his place, as that guy again for the next couple of years. James, are you bullish on Kyren? Does it move him up at all for you, or were you fully expecting this to happen anyway?
I don't think I've really thought about Kyren Williams getting an extension, to be honest, but I guess it reinforces, like I said, it reinforces his role, and it means that that's the plan. Like NFL teams make mistakes, and things change, and he could have an injury, and then someone could take the role, and then he's not going to have the same role next year if that happens. If someone sort of earns their snaps as a result of his injury or whatever. But this kind of shows that this is the plan for the Rams. So we've got to kind of pay attention to that. And he's realistically, I guess, an RB1 for the next couple of years again, at least in terms of where we're going to project him to finish.
Yeah, I think obviously we like pieces of this LA Rams offense. It's shown that he can handle the workload. Although he has obviously got a bit of a checkered past when it comes to injuries. But they keep drafting running backs every single year. But I think Kyren is still going to be the guy for at least the next couple of years. My advice would be probably sell him after this season, where his value is still going to be where it is, and he'll only have a year, sort of realistically a year left on his contract. That was I suppose it's the mediocre signing of the day, because Teddy Bridgewater is the main signing, the 1-year deal to be the Bucs' backup quarterback. Absolutely pumped for that. We will move on to the main section of tonight's show, which is our Dynasty Rankings Debate. So we have updated our Dynasty Rankings, James, and basically I'm higher on a lot of players than what you are that we're going to highlight tonight. So we've got a quarterback, and then we've got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends. So we're going to kick things off, and we're going to talk about a guy that I certainly wasn't in on at the start of 2024, a guy that had a terrible start to the season and just finished it off like almost an elite quarterback, or probably was an elite quarterback. It is Bo Nix, obviously the Denver Broncos quarterback, rookie in 2024, and quarterback 7 in 2024 was not what I expected after 3 games in. Hadn't thrown a single pass and touchdown. Really looked like a rookie that was raw, even though he'd played plenty in college and he was coming in slightly older. That quarterback 7 finish was incredible. Really, really surprised me. Quarterback 8 in points per game. So it's a really solid quarterback 1. And someone that in redraft, especially for this season, I'm really gone heavily on, where I've sort of not been able to get one of the elite quarterbacks. I'm happy to get sort of a guy who I feel is in the next tier to those guys. So quarterback 6 in passing touchdowns. So that was surprising, considering he didn't throw a passing touchdown until week 4. but really finished on a tear. So the final 8 games, I think he had 24 passing touchdowns, which was the 4th most in the NFL. So really finished the season well. And with that, he's fantasy relevant because of his rushing. He added 430 rushing yards, which is something that I absolutely strive to have on my dynasty quarterbacks, as someone that can add rushing. And if you're adding sort of over 400 yards with your legs scrambling, you're either adding rushing touchdowns or just adding points up, which makes the difference when it comes to you being an actual contender for championships and someone that's just going to make the playoffs. So yeah, he was the 8th most rushing yards for a quarterback, which again was surprising. We saw that in college, but for him to be allowed to do it on that offense was great. And yeah, he just looked really super confident, absolutely poised through the second half of 2024. So when you look at the rookie quarterbacks last year, definitely going to highlight him and Jaden Daniels as 2 that looked almost like veterans as they finished the season. They were, so poised in the pocket, didn't rush when they were under pressure, just controlled the offense like a true veteran. So yeah, I think going forward, he's obviously got Sean Payton as his head coach. Absolutely love that connection, what he's able to dice up on offense. The weapons, they've just re-signed Cortland Sutton for a decent chunk, so he's going to be the wide receiver 1. They also had a great connection in 2024. They've signed Evan Ingram in free agency. I think that's a really nice add for Bo Nix, someone that can see a big amount of volume at the tight end position, and he's still young enough to have the next few years as good years for Ingram and a good target for Bo Nix. And then RJ Harvey, someone that we all really high on, and someone that I think is sneaky, and Pat Bryant, that I think that can work in to be the wide receiver 2 for this team, who I think is pretty decent as well. So he's got some decent weapons there. Quarterback 9, I think that obviously I would have never thought to put him there at the start of the season, but I just have to have him there because I think that quarterback 7 finishing in 2024 as a rookie, starting slow, I think that he can easily show that again this year and finish as a top 8 quarterback in 2025. And I do think the quarterback 9 ranking, I think it's probably approaching his ceiling. So I'd probably say around about quarterback 6. So that's sort of Mahomes territory is roughly where his ceiling might end up being. But I think that he can stick around this ranking long enough to warrant being the quarterback 9 for me right now. So I do think that he can be a quarterback 1. I'm going to rank him as quarterback 1 for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So I think quarterback 9 is probably not overstating it. I think it feels about right to me. And your ranking, James, is just far too low, mate.
This is going to, like you said at the start, we're looking at players that I have ranked lower than you. For some reason, we haven't got any that are the other way around. So it's all just going to be me defending why I'm ranking these players low. Most of the time, it's just that I prefer other players. Like it's just that is just what it is. I think you had him as you say QB 9. He's my QB 14. And it's just there's a few guys, 5 guys clearly that I would rather have different to you above him. So those guys are Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, and Caleb Williams. I think that's right. I don't think you've got any of those above him. It's just that this is what happens in general in like the fantasy community and everything. We always, we want the young player, the player that's like broken out, or the rookie that's just been drafted, and we get a little bit overexcited. I just I feel like I'm a little bit more reserved, and I want to see a little bit more from someone like Bo Nix before I have him above those guys. Now, obviously, you could say I've got Caleb Williams in there, and obviously Bo Nix was certainly a much better fantasy asset than Caleb Williams was last year. But again, I'm just saying that after a year, it's not enough for me to flip them round. Now, obviously, Caleb was considerably ahead of Bo Nix this time a year ago, so there has been movement. I think what have I got them now? It's probably back to back or very close to it anyway. For me, Bo Nix, like you mentioned, Sean Payton. I think that's key for Bo Nix. Like his his value and his sort of role or his production for fantasies is really heavily tied to the offense and the head coach. And I'm not sure that would be the case if he was anywhere else. But I think we can say the same for a lot of the guys that I've kind of listed ahead of him anyway. Like they've got ties to an elite offense or a good play caller. You know, maybe not Kyler Murray, but I've just seen a bit more of Kyler, seen him for longer, kind of a bit more confident in him. And then obviously Caleb Williams, we haven't seen it, but we're obviously assuming that he's going to have an elite play caller. Ben Johnson's come over from the Lions and was probably one of the top play callers in the league. And if he can bring that kind of offense over, then yeah, Caleb Williams is certainly going to be ranked much higher in a year's time. Just to pick up on a couple of things. So you say was he top 6 in passing touchdowns, but 4 of those were in week 18 against the Chiefs, who had their feet up. And I don't think the Chiefs scored a single point. I don't know if they probably rested absolutely everyone. So that does boost it a bit. Now, I'll not take it away from Bo Nix, but yeah, obviously that kind of helps him out. And then if you're looking at weeks 1 to 17, in points per game, he's QB 10. I think it's slightly different. I think you might have been looking at week 18 as well. But so I'm not putting too many people above him from that. I'm not like putting a whole bunch of players above him based on what he did last year. One of them is Mahomes, because Mahomes was below him in points per game last year. So, you know, you've got Mahomes. I think it might be Herbert, and then yeah, some of those names I've already mentioned. I think Sam Darnold actually had a better season in terms of fantasy, so he's dropped down, and those other ones have gone above him in my kind of rankings. That is, so yeah, it's not that I hate Bo Nix. I just have a little bit of doubts, I guess, that like you said, they've just drafted RJ Harvey. The running back situation was pretty dire for the Broncos last year. So if they can get more out of the running game this year, maybe that rushing floor diminishes a little bit, and he's not that involved in the running game because they won't necessarily need him to be. So yeah, I just have him a little bit lower than you. That's all.
Yeah, and we will move on to the running back debate. So again, I think we've chosen 2 rookie running backs from this year's class. So it was a really decent class, and someone that I was really, really high on was Amarian Hampton, and I have him ranked as RB5. James, you've got him a couple of spots lower. So it's not going to have a massive debate here about why you're 2 spots different to what I am. But I think in terms of the overall rankings, it's more tiers, because I think that I've got certainly probably six, maybe 7 running backs that I have in the elite category. So maybe one of those quite falls off after this ranking. But Amarian Hampton for me is definitely in that category. Obviously got the round 1 draft capital in this year's draft, and to a team that we absolutely have been preaching to draft the running back early the last few years, and they haven't done it. The LA Chargers under Jim Harbaugh, clearly they want to be a run-first offense. They told us that last year. They just quite didn't have the personnel to fully achieve it. They were 13th in rushing attempts per game in 2024, but when you look at the likes of J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins broke down. The running game was going fine. And then the absolute corpse of Gus Edwards was there. I think it was just a real struggle altogether. And then they've upgraded since to Hampton and Najee Harris, which is a nice, a nice combination. And I just think that them going for Amarian Hampton in round 1 is real strong indication that they see him as a star. I certainly saw him as a prospect, one of my favorite prospects in quite a while, to be honest. I think he's got the all-round game to do everything, to have the workload, to catch passes, and that showed as a prospect out of North Carolina. 2 absolute godly back-to-back seasons. So he totaled over 3,100 rushing yards, over 30 touchdowns, and 67 receptions again, which I think is key. Just shows that he's not just going to be a thumper, and then someone else is going to come in and get the key 3rd down role where they're going to catch the passes. I think that he can do it all, and obviously at the minute he seems to be the only real sort of healthy running back when you consider Najee Harris has got this weird eye injury from firework accident or whatever, and he first wasn't at camp, and now he is at camp, but he's always got his glasses on, and he's not. I mean, it's just weird. It's a weird situation, and I'm absolutely amazed that there's not been any pictures of his eye, because it has to be pretty bad for him not to be able to practice. You know, you're not using your eye for physical activity other than, you know, looking at defenders where you're running. So it must be pretty bad, but I am anticipating him to come back and probably start the season. But you just never know if he's not practicing whatsoever right now, and the season is a month away. There's no guarantee that, you know, how quickly does an eye heal? You know, how bad is it? If he was to miss, you know, if he was to go on the pup and miss a couple of games, maybe 2 or 3 games, then we're going to see an absolute star in the making from game 1 in Hampton. You know, and I fully expect him to have, throughout the back half of this season coming, to be a star and have that role almost to himself. But if he's having it from game 1, I think that's really, really exciting for people that drafted Hampton, you know, as early as the 102 this year. But yeah, in terms of this year, I don't see him being a bit like Bijan, should we say, not Bijan. I don't see him in his rookie season being an absolute star. I think that he will build up to it, and you see that. I mean, Bijan Robinson is my I hate saying that. It's my running back 1 in Dynasty, and I think that Hampton, I'm not going to say he's going to get there, but I think he's already the top 5 for me, and, you know, he could easily get top 3 within a year, in a year's time. So I think he's going to hang around for a while. He's in an absolute great offense with Justin Herbert, a team that wants to run the ball. They're going to score plenty of touchdowns. I just think it's the perfect place. So anywhere lower than perhaps RB5, 6, 7, I think I'd have question marks on what you were thinking. But I think you're not far away from me, James. So I absolutely understand being a bit more cautious. Perhaps you're a massive Najee Harris fan. But yeah, I mean, we're not miles away. But have you got any concerns at all about Hampton? Were you as big a fan as I was in terms of the pre-draft process?
I think, again, this is similar with, there's just a couple of guys I just prefer. And yeah, most of my points are about those guys instead of Hampton. So I think the 2 differences is I've got Bucky Irvin and Devon Achane above Hampton. You know, Achane, he was, I think, RB7 in points per game last year, which was, all things considered, a bad year for that Dolphins offense. And we saw him as a rookie scoring 50 points in some games and consistently, being an RB1 when he was actually on the field. He missed obviously a lot of time in his rookie year. And then Bucky Irvin was running back 4 after his bye week last year. So it's just, those guys at the moment, I'm just saying at the moment, I have them ranked ahead of Hampton. I think within the next year or 2, running back 4 is the peak that Hampton can reach, just because of the guys above him. Obviously, Bijan, Gibbs, and we're assuming that Ashton Janty is going to be up. You know, obviously right now he's ranked above him, and we're assuming that that's going to continue to be the case. Obviously, stranger things happen, and some people, you can flip the rankings around maybe, and in a year's time, Hampton might be above Janty. But so I think that running back 4 is kind of ceiling, and that's obviously where you've got him, which is fine. I think in a year's time, it's a very real possibility that I have him there as well. But right now, I think right now we both have Barkley above him. Sorry, you've got him at 5, haven't you? Not 4. Yeah, we both have Barkley above him, which, you know, obviously add a year on to Barkley's age, and the chances are that probably goes. So then he just needs to go above, Bucky and Achane to get up to that kind of ceiling where I see him. But I think that there are reasons that he could potentially not go above those guys, and so that's kind of why I have him where he is right now. Bucky could obviously, like I said, he was RB4 after the bye week, but he didn't really ever see a huge workload, and maybe that goes up, and then he's got more reliable, and in which case, I think everyone's going to be fully bought in on him. The Dolphins offense, I mean, this isn't really a point about Achane, but the Dolphins offense surely can't be as bad again. If Tua stays healthy for the whole year and the offense fully functioning, then Achane could be back up in that conversation of top 3 points this season. And like you mentioned Najee there. So I think that's just such a strange situation where like I said, we've not seen any images of him without glasses on. It's just really bizarre. And I actually I would be concerned if you were kind of relying on Najee to be starting for you at the beginning of the season. Like maybe you've got a share of Najee because you thought, he'd be good for the first half of the season. But I don't see that. But maybe what it does mean is he's going to come back and be fully healthy in the middle of the season, and then that's going to dampen Hampton's workload a bit. Maybe they kind of see Hampton as the main guy, but when Najee's there, he's certainly going to take some of the workload, and then that maybe just means we have a little bit less confidence in Hampton in the playoffs, fantasy playoffs. I mean, obviously we are still going to be starting him, even regardless of this situation. He's going to be starting everyone in their fantasy lineups, but just a little bit of question mark over him. Like those guys above him, I just feel a little bit more confident in. And like I said, running back 7 it's not too far behind you.
To be honest, anyone putting Bucky Irving ahead of anyone, if he was your RB1, I'm not going to complain because I absolutely love Bucky Irving, as you will understand. And I hope he's going to be an absolute stud again this season. And to be honest, James, I'm not going to fight you too hard on this next guy because when you pointed out that I was 6 spots ahead of you on Caleb Johnson, I sort of really didn't want to talk about him because I've been quite vocal in saying how much I sort of dislike Caleb Johnson, and it was sort of started in the rookie draft where he was creeping up. He wasn't just taken right at the back end of round 1. He was sort of creeping up into that conversation with RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins, although that doesn't look great right now. But he was creeping up too high for my liking. So I was saying, look, he's a guy that I'm not touching unless he really gets to that 1-2 turn where there's just far more question marks on the guys there. So it kind of just happened where I took a lot of shares of Caleb Johnson because he kept falling to that 1-2 turn. I got him in beginning of round 2 in quite a few drafts, and I feel good about that. But just I can't believe that I'm 6 spots. So I've got him as RB15. You've got him at RB21. So I'm interested to see why you have him that low. I guess that he's going to a team that, like the Chargers, although not as good of offense, nowhere near as good of offense, they clearly want to run the ball as well. I think he's got that volume on tap. It's got, obviously, Aaron Rodgers coming over. So potentially, I mean, has he got anything left in the tank? Perhaps not. I think he's going to have to rely on the running game. The defense is always good for the Steelers. And I think it'll continue to be sort of average, above average for 2025, which helps the running game. And I think the lack of pass catching weapons outside of DK Metcalf, I think really does help as well, Caleb Johnson. And then looking at sort of recently, I know you can't trust all the reports, but he started off with the 2s, but recently, the past week or 2, he has been getting, first team reps alongside Jaylen Warren, which I think was always going to be the case. And he's sort of getting the first touches, which is a good sign. Looking at, sort of who he's replaced in Najee Harris, he averaged 309 opportunities per season for the last 3 years. So he stayed remarkably healthy. But, just shows that the opportunity is there for Caleb Johnson if he shows that he's got what it takes. I think the reports early on was that his blocking was absolutely atrocious, but I think that he's worked on that, and they've been raving about him the last few days. And this is a prospect that's only just 21 years old, so he's one of the youngest in the class. And then looking at my rankings, I've got him ahead of the likes. So there's some big names here.
in James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, and Christian McCaffrey. So I've got him above those guys. I'd have all of those above him in terms of redraft rankings, but I just think that with his age, with the projected volume that he's going to get, you've got question marks on all of those guys. Like James Cook is holding out right now. Josh Jacobs is getting up there in age. I think he's going to have a great year this year, but then his value could really fall off a cliff. Kenneth Walker's one injury away from massive, value drop again. And the same with Christian McCaffrey. I think Chris McCaffrey could be the MVP this year, but if he was to go down to a major injury like he has done the last couple of years, then again, his value is going to just disappear. So I've got him ahead of those guys already right now, contemplating that's going to happen anyway in 12 months' time. But yeah, I've got a lot of shares of him, so perhaps I'm a bit worried. Perhaps it's a bit of copium that I've got him this high. But James, I am interested to see why you've got him 6 spots lower than me.
Well, what you need to know is I'm just in line with consensus, but you're just a super fan of Caleb Johnson. I think we've probably got him, like the consensus is probably like that 17, 18 range. And yeah, we just got him a couple either side of that. Again, you've gone through the offense, the Steelers offense. I just don't really feel like I want to touch anything that Aaron Rodgers is involved in. It's difficult. Yeah. Like obviously in the NFL situation changes so quickly. So yeah, I could be putting too much weight on the Steelers offense, but like this is the thing with the Steelers is they're just never in a position to really improve that quarterback situation. And they just win too many games to be able to draft one. And then, they just don't do enough. They're not aggressive enough in, upgrading it in free agency or via a trade. They don't try and trade up and hard enough to be able to draft a quarterback. So, yeah, like those players that you've mentioned there that I've probably got above Caleb Johnson. They all score or have the ability to score a load of touchdowns because either their offense is elite or they own the whole backfield and they're really explosive. But do we have that with Caleb Johnson? Like with the Steelers offense, like just how many touchdowns are they going to score? I could be completely wrong on this, and maybe Aaron Rodgers has still got it, and yeah, he's not the player we've seen over the last couple of years. But yeah, like I just really struggle with this situation. And again, I'm not saying that I really hate the player or I've got him ranked terribly. It's running back 21. It's not awful. He's a running back 2. Those players that James Cook, Josh Jacobs have got question marks. Kenneth Walker, Chris McCaffrey, they've all got question marks. But I think that so does Caleb Johnson at the moment. And I've seen those running backs score double figures touchdowns or have running back 1 seasons. And I'm just not sure how long it's going to take for Caleb Johnson to be a guy that is a running back 1, because I just don't know how he's going to do that with the offense and the situation that they've got. Like, we just never know who the quarterback's going to be year to year with the Steelers. If Aaron Rodgers is good and Caleb Johnson has a solid season, his ceiling is I don't know, probably similar to where you've got him. He's unlikely to be a top 12 running back, I would say, this year. Very unlikely. Things would have to go incredibly well. But if that happens, the Steelers are going to have a really late draft pick, and they're not going to draft a quarterback again. Who are they going to get in free agency? And we're just back at the same situation. I just really find it hard to buy into that offense. I'm more than happy to take Caleb Johnson. I just have him, just behind those guys that I think I'm just more confident in, and they've proven it to me. Like, James Cook is obviously holding out, so realistically, this could look bad in a month or two's time if he's not playing. But last season he scored like 15 touchdowns or something stupid. So it's just that ceiling. I've seen it there. I'm just more confident in it than I am a rookie running back. That I don't know what's going to happen in that backfield and in that offense.
Yeah, I totally get it. I ain't going to fight you over Caleb Johnson because he's someone that I just thought I would be too low on. But we're going to move on because we need to talk about a guy that I am really, really high on in Malik Neighbors, wide receiver. of the New York Giants. I don't know why it took ages to answer that. I was just thinking, was he a 2024 rookie or 2023? But yeah, 2024. And yeah, I've got him at wide receiver 3, so I am super high on him. James, you've got him at wide receiver 7. Probably going to be in the same tier because I think we've both got Jefferson and Chase in a tier above, and then going to be in the same tier, but perhaps mine's at the top and yours at the bottom. So yeah, I just think that Malik Nabers is an incredible prospect, someone that's absolutely delivered on a really poor team. So I think that sets him up for success in the future. How long until he gets a good quarterback? Who knows? But I just think that him setting records already at just 21 years old, he's already set the Giants' record of 109 receptions in a single season. So obviously that's more than OBJ could manage in any of his seasons there. The most receptions ever by a rookie wide receiver in a single season. Not the most ever because Brock Bowers passed him with 112 because he's just incredible. But yeah, he was the fastest to reach 100 career receptions in just 14 games. And I just think that he is sort of the younger version, the unguardable wide receiver that is building up to be in that Chase Jefferson tier of wide receiver in terms of real life and in terms of fantasy. He's just not quite there yet. He's knocking on the door. So wide receiver 3 for me. But obviously there is some drawbacks with his situation in 2025. The quarterback position is the main one. I think that this offense is going to continue to be pretty stinky in 2025. I think you could see an improvement in the run game, which I think ultimately will help. They had a nice sort of running game that sort of started last season, and now them drafting, what's his name? I forgot his name.
Scatterbo.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good move, and I think that he's already shown up in camp. But then in terms of the wide receivers, I mean, who else? Again, who else is there other than Malik Nabers to throw the ball to? I think his target share was 35%, which is an incredible figure in 2024. That's going to continue at a similar rate in 2025. The only thing is that stops him getting into that Chase and Jefferson tier right now is just that ceiling. So, I mean, he had a very, very similar, if not the same amount of targets as Jamar Chase in 2024, which I think was 170. But Jamar Chase had 17 receiving touchdowns in 2024 and Malik Nabers had 7. So that just shows you the position that those two are in. Russell Wilson is now, the starting quarterback for the Giants. He had 16 passing touchdowns in 11 games for the Steelers when they benched Justin Fields for him. So he's on pace for 25 over a season. Joe Burrow was sort of nearly double that at 43. So there's different levels right now to where he is. And then when I look, I've got him above CeeDee Lamb. So that was probably the most difficult decision for me, putting him above CeeDee Lamb, who's my wide receiver 4. And I don't think he's going to outproduce CeeDee Lamb in 2024 because I think CeeDee Lamb could potentially be the wide receiver 1 in 2025. But I do think that in real life terms, I think he's a better all-round wide receiver who I'm going to bet on the talent over situation right now for Nabers, especially just considering how just how young he is. And my advice for anyone who's thinking about perhaps going all in for Malik Nabers, I think that this is really the last chance you're going to get to acquire him before he reaches that untouchable sort of area that Jamar Chase is in. Because I mean, how many firsts do you have to throw to get someone to move Jamar Chase? It's just not worth that move. So yeah, I think that the only way you're going to get him is if you trade up from similar guys that people have in his tier. So Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Drake London. I think if I'm looking to get Malik Nabers, and I am, I'm using those guys to move up to try and get him because I think in 12 months' time, I think that the asking price is going to be, right, I'll have Puka, plus you got to give me a first, which right now is probably not worth it. So yeah, I think now it's time to strike, and that's why I've got him at wide receiver 3. And you're 4 spots below me, so you're probably going to say that it's just because you've got some wide receivers above him that you prefer, which is absolutely fair because they're going to be in the same tier.
Yeah, that's it. It's just I didn't think that I would be having to justify having Malik Neighbours ranked this low because I feel like it's like you say they're in a tier. I think of the players I've got above him, it's only really Nico Collins that I can have a realistic argument about swapping them around. Like, you got Chase, you got Jefferson, and then CeeDee Lamb. I've got Amon-Ra, and then Puka, and then it's Nico Collins. And I think you can certainly have that conversation because I think you're right that in a year's time, those guys like Nico, for example, is not going to be wide receiver 3 in a year's time, but there is a real chance that Malik Neighbours is, and that this is the only realistic chance to buy him. I think Neighbours is a great player and he's going to be great for fantasy. I just, like you've mentioned it already, that there's just some of those players above him that there's just less doubts at the moment. So they're kind of tied to a better quarterback or a quarterback that we know is going to be there long term, or they have a play caller or a head coach that we are confident in. Obviously CeeDee Lamb's got Dak Prescott, and as long as Dak Prescott's healthy, CeeDee Lamb's going to be great. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I guess, is probably the one where the situation has changed this year with the offensive coordinator change. And obviously Jared Goff is not an elite quarterback. He's good enough for the offense that Ben Johnson's running. So there's going to be some question marks over that. But the type of player that he is, he doesn't need the offense to be, firing and scoring loads of touchdowns. Obviously Puka Nakua's got Matt Stafford, hopefully. That elite play caller in Sean McVay. And then obviously, Nico Collins has got CJ Stroud, who, it might not be sort of an elite fantasy asset like we kind of thought he might have been a year ago, but he's certainly a very good NFL quarterback. And we don't know the Giants quarterback situation, but you've said already that, Neighbours thrived last year with probably a worse quarterback situation. So he'll be just fine. It just, for me, it just feels like it caps that ceiling a little bit, and I'm just hesitant to rank him at that wide receiver 3. You mentioned the volume. He missed a couple of games last year and had 5 targets fewer than Jamar Chase. So, had he played every game, he would have had comfortably the most targets in the league. So I guess the only slight risk is maybe he just doesn't get that volume again. There's no reason why he won't continue to get that volume because, like you said, the offense is going to be reliant on him. But if maybe the offense gets a little bit better, maybe the Giants' defense is a little bit better, and that volume just ticks down a little bit. Again, he's going to be absolutely fine. He's highly likely to be a top 5 wide receiver for the next however many years you want to name. I'd rather probably wait before I put him at that wide receiver 3, and maybe I'll end up being too late, and I won't have any shares of him, or I won't be able to buy any shares of him when that happens. I just kind of sort of lean towards those guys that are kind of a bit more stable situation.
Yep, that's absolutely fair. And the fact that he is a division rival of yours, James, means that you definitely hate him and don't want to rank him that high. But we'll move on to the next one because this is also a guy that I think the offense absolutely needs this guy to show up every single week. And we're going to move to, a team that shares the same stadium in the Jets and Garrett Wilson. So again, this is the guy that I didn't think that I was going to be too high on, but he ended up being wide receiver 10 in my updated Dynasty rankings. And I feel like there's just absolutely no buzz about Garrett Wilson this offseason. There's not anybody talking about, what he can do, the situation, how he's showing out. I just think that people just assume that he's going to go about his normal life and just ball out and just be, decent for fantasy. Maybe not quite elite, but I think I'm happy with wide receiver 10 rankings, and perhaps it is the quarterback situation that, a bit like the Giants, leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. Justin Fields has come across as the quarterback for 2025, and I mean, I don't think anybody expects him to be there again in 2026. I think that it's highly likely that the Jets are going to be drafting in the top 12 picks, 15 probably at highest, where they're probably going to be in range for one of these rookies. I think that there's going to be quite a few rookie quarterbacks that are going to be ranked maybe 5, 6 quarterbacks that could be taken in round 1 in 2026. So they could definitely be in range for one of those. So again, it could be Garrett Wilson starting all over with a quarterback in 2026, or it could be that, you know, Justin Fields plays really well and earns himself another year. Perhaps they move away from that area of the draft and he sort of wins maybe 8 games and they stick with him. Because I think that as obviously a fantasy producer, Justin Fields is incredible by himself, but I think that he will hyper target Garrett Wilson, and I think he's obviously showed in the past with DJ Moore being, you know, wide receiver 6. Was it 2 or 3 seasons ago where he showed that he absolutely hyper targeted him? And I mean, I think that Garrett Wilson's got more talent than DJ Moore as an overall wide receiver in the NFL. I think that he could absolutely finish up there as wide receiver 6 in 2025. And just looking at the Jets situation, there is just Garrett Wilson and nobody else. I think that they're not favoured in hardly any games in terms of the bookies this year, which is fair, because I think coming off a poor season, why would you? They've not made massive movement in terms of investment in their team. They had obviously Devontae Adams in 2024, and you know, Devontae Adams getting up there in age now, but he, by his own right, had a fantastic season for fantasy and in real life, but obviously moved on after that year. And yeah, so it is literally fallen on Garrett Wilson and, you know, sort of the run game to lean on to move this ball forward. So I really do think that Garrett Wilson is someone that nobody's talking about, but it's the sneaky candidate to finish as a really high wide receiver this year. And then looking at the players that I've got him above, there's probably some big names on this list and names that I actually do like. So Marvin Harrison Jr., I've dropped him down quite a few spots from where I had him ranked 12 months ago. JSN, really like JSN. He's just behind Garrett Wilson for me. And then Lad McConkey, obviously someone that I absolutely love, but feel that he's sort of at his ceiling where I've got him ranked. But yeah, Garrett Wilson, I think that he's been quarterback proof. He's not had that really good wide receiver 1 finish just yet, but I do feel like this could be the year with Justin Fields hyper targeted him in 2025. So you're 5 spots below me, James. So I mean, you're probably talking the same tier, if not, you know, maybe just 1 tier below. How come you've got him wide receiver 15? Is it just the guys that are ahead of him, or do you see some, perhaps not the ceiling that I see for Wilson?
I think so. This is one of the guys where I'm well aware that I am below consensus, or I've always kind of had that view. I think it's just frustrating. It's been a really frustrating start to his career, and obviously, yeah, almost all of that is got nothing to do with him. He's a fantastic wide receiver. You watch him play football, and you know he's one of the top 12 wide receivers in the league. That's just a fact. But I think the reason I have him at wide receiver 15 is it's just we've been waiting for this to happen. We've been waiting for him to have that kind of breakout. You know, obviously he had the good rookie year, and then at that point he was wide receiver 3 in like most consensus rankings, because everyone kind of thought, well, he'll get a quarterback and he'll be elite for fantasy. He was very good for fantasy in that rookie year, but I just feel like since then it's just been underwhelming or inconsistent. Which is, like I said, nothing to do with him. Obviously, last year with Aaron Rodgers, and then Devontae Adams was there, and then the year before, Aaron Rodgers doesn't even throw a pass in his direction. So, yeah, he had to deal with Zach Wilson and whoever else they had rolling out for them that year. So, yeah, if you just look at like last year, he was either a top 5 wide receiver, so I think he had like a couple of top 2s and a top 5 finish, or he was outside the top 20. There was one wide receiver 18 week, which is somewhere in the middle like that. So it was just feast or famine. It was, you know, did he score a touchdown that week, or, you know, like did he have a long reception that week, which sort of rocket him up to be like those really high scores. So and it wasn't really any more consistent than that in 2023. It was very similar, either like a top 1 or 2 wide receiver on the week or outside the top 20. And it's just really frustrating to have this asset that you're viewing as, top 12 fantasy or dynasty wide receiver, but a lot of the weeks, over half the season, you're seeing him finish outside the top 20, and it's just boom or bust, and it just gets frustrating for me. And I think that's a lot of the reason for the ranking. I just feel like he's destined to just be outside the top 12 for fantasy, even though he's clearly, in talent-wise, inside the top 12 quite comfortably. I think if you spoke about the tiers, like, the tier drop for me is after Garrett Wilson. So I think I've got, just have a look, like, Rashee Rice, Lad McConkey, JSN above him, which, maybe Rashee Rice, you could argue, could drop below him. But I just feel more confident in those other ones for producing for fantasy. I feel like he's almost a little bit like Terry McLaurin, but way more sort of higher valued, if you see what I mean, where we're just waiting for him to get that elite quarterback, and then he's going to be amazing for fantasy. And I just you kind of touched on it. I just can't see things changing significantly in the next year or two in terms of the offense being good. So it just feels sad. And I think a lot of it is just because I'm waiting for it to happen, and it hasn't happened yet, and it's a bit of fatigue. So I've just gotten below those guys who have got those elite quarterbacks or have been more consistent. Wide receiver 15, I think it's a quite a big drop for me. I think after that, so the likes of Ted McMillan, T Higgins, and players like that who I love as well, but I just see that they're not potential wide receiver ones in the way that Garrett Wilson is in the right environment. I just can't see it happening for him anytime soon.
Yeah, it is a sad situation. I feel like he's definitely been held back. You put him on one of these offenses with an elite quarterback, and he would absolutely be in the wide receiver 1 overall conversation. But I do feel like it's kind of like Drake London. It feels like Drake London to me 12 months ago, where we were waiting for the breakout. It finally happened. And I do feel like if Justin Fields is the quarterback that stays healthy for 2025, then he absolutely could have that breakout season. We're going to move on to, I can't believe we talked about 2 more tight ends that I'm higher than you on, James. And not even tight ends that I like. This is unbelievable. I feel like you've stitched me up with your rankings, but Dalton Kincaid is the first tight end we want to talk about. And if I could tag Mags in right now to take the lead on this one, I honestly would, because we know, and I hope that he's not lost the love for Dalton Kincaid, because it was magical for the last couple of seasons, hyping him up. But I do feel like he's a bit victim of the hype. I mean, Mags is to blame here, of 2024, after he had a really, really solid rookie season where he was tight end 11, 91 targets in 2023. That dipped to 75 in 2024, although he only featured in 13 games. So the pace was still on pace with the same sort of was after his rookie season. I think he was a victim also of the Bills' offense. So the stats around Josh Allen are absolutely mad. For him to finish as the quarterback 2 last year, but didn't have a top 30 wide receiver, a top whatever it was tight end, it's absolutely insane for him to be able to do that. But the Bills' offense works by spreading the ball around, and the running game was just unbelievable last year, where James Cook had so many rushing touchdowns as well as Josh Allen did. And it was successful. So they're not going to change that formula. Looked at Keep Trade Cut on Dalton Kincaid to check where he was compared to where I am. And it led me back to August the 16th, so almost a year today. He was tight end 2 on Keep Trade Cut, which just shows that you can go a bit too far when we talk about, I think you mentioned earlier, these young players that we project to be there for the next 6, 7, 8 years, but can easily fall off a cliff nowadays. And then looking forward to 2025 and beyond, I don't see a massive amount changing for this year. But then looking at the underlying stats and the facts, I don't think a massive amount needs to change for Dalton Kincaid to bounce back to at least be a tight end one, if not be a mid tight end one. I think that you look at the situation right now, and we're not into the season yet, but almost the top two wide receivers, Khalil Shakir and Josh Palmer, are not playing. They're not featuring right now. Both got injuries. I think one's out for multiple weeks. In Shakir, I think he's week to week. Josh Palmer, I think he's got the groin injury. Similar sort of timeline, perhaps a bit quicker that he's going to return. You've got Keon Coleman there. I do hold some hope about Keon Coleman, but I don't realistically see him breaking out. You've got James Cook that's holding out right now for a new contract. Perhaps the Bills look at Kyren Williams and sort of offer him that sort of similar size contract. Perhaps he will accept it. Who knows? You've got Dalton Kincaid entering year 3. I think history has shown that is the year that typically the tight ends make their biggest leap, is from year 3 to 4. So he could make that step up in year 3. Certainly hoping so. His usage could easily go up. When you look at his underlying stats, he actually led all tight ends in targets per route run in 2024 with 0.28. So it just shows that when he was on the field, when he was featured as the tight end 1, as he wasn't always, he has been really, really effective. I think his yak numbers were really, really good. I've not got them to hand, but they were really, really impressive. And just remember back to the Bills, they traded up really, really aggressively in round 1 to get Dalton Kincaid in 2023. And it looked like an absolute smash. I guess that's the reason why it led to his tight end 2 ranking on Keep Trade Cut. But I just want to highlight that I don't think all is lost with Dalton Kincaid. I think he's still just hanging on to being a tight end 1. I think is obviously his age is absolutely fine. And I do see there being a realm of possibility where he finishes as a solid tight end 1 this year, in which he could go back to being ranked as probably tight end 7 is probably 6-7 is the ceiling. So probably after the Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, who I think are absolutely great prospects, going to have a good season. Perhaps just after those, I think that you could find Kincaid in a year's time. So tight end 10, it's not very exciting. And obviously, James, you've got him ranked as tight end 16, so you're even less excited about Kincaid in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, this is not intended to be a spoiler alert for who our next player is, but he's Kyle Pitts 2.0. It's just, again, it's similar to the Garrett Wilson one, or where I was kind of waiting for it to happen for Kincaid last year. And I think the reason that I've kind of dropped him is it's just because it seemed like everything was lined up for him last year. Like you said, Stefon Diggs moved on. Everything was fully open up for there to be a new number 1 target for Josh Allen. But the offense changed a little bit, and they just spread the ball around so much now, and that running game is so much better. Obviously, it was always good. Josh Allen was always great running the ball, but James Cook had such a good season, and they've obviously got a few other backs there as well that really contributed, and they just spread the ball around so much. And I think the thing is, the frustrating thing for me was, if you look at how often he's on the field, it's depressing. So as a rookie, he did eventually overtake Dawson Knox in terms of who was on the field the most, and he had more snaps per game. But he didn't last year. Now, maybe that was injury related. Like I said, he missed a couple of games and stuff. So, but per game he was below Knox. And it's just frustrating that, you're tight end 1, the person that you've got, valued that highly at the start of last year, was just barely seeing the field. So they spread the ball around so much, but if you're not on the field, you're not even going to be involved like a couple of times a game. So it's just, for me, he's now in that I've just given up on him being the primary target of the offense, or a focal point of the offense, and he's in that bracket of players that need to be scoring touchdowns, and he just doesn't score any touchdowns. He's got 2 in each year, so he's got 4. And for a tight end, you want them to be touching that 8 a year kind of bracket, where most weeks you start them, every other week you start them, they score a touchdown for you and they're fine. They're a top 12 tight end because that's all it takes for a tight end, one touchdown. I'd rather just, get someone that's a bit cheaper, a vet that's a bit cheaper that's actually going to score. So yeah, I think it's just the frustration part again, where maybe it's a little bit of an overreaction having him at 16, and there's probably not 15 tight ends that I would value higher than him and that I would trade straight up for him. But in terms of who I want to own and things like that, they're just players that, let's have a look. Who have I got? I think I've probably got, like Evan Ingram. You obviously mentioned him. I'm just way more happier having Evan Ingram in my Dynasty lineup for the next 2 or 3 years than I am Kincaid, because I just don't know when I'm going to be confident starting him, because it's just been pretty rough to start his career. And if it didn't happen for him last year, I just don't have enough of a reason to kind of back him to sort of break out this year. But like you said, year 3. Tight ends make that leap normally. It takes a couple of years. I think, was it Trey McBride's 3rd year last year? Obviously, we'd seen more of Trey McBride, but he really made that leap last year. That feels a little bit of a stretch, but maybe, like you said, maybe top 5 or 6 is a possibility. But for me, like we've kind of mentioned this on previous shows, if it's not that top tier, then they're all the same, and I'd rather just have the one at the bottom because he's cheaper.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to argue, because that's great advice, and especially going for someone that is more of a touchdown machine. In someone like Mark Andrews, that you see him on rankings is so low down, but I mean, he could easily catch double-digit touchdowns again this year and wouldn't be surprised. But we're going to be on to the final player, and tight end 11, I have got ranked the guy that you are seeing all over the timelines. The highlights. It's Kyle Pitts. You've got him down at tight end 19, so perhaps it's more interesting to see why you've got him so low. But I've got him ranked as still a tight end 1. Can't quite believe that. Just purely on vibes, just because how positive the community is on Kyle Pitts right now, the memes that we're seeing. But no, I think I'm not going to go on about Kyle Pitts, because you talk about these players that we've been frustrated with. I mean, is there any player you've been more frustrated with in Kyle Pitts? This is a guy that was drafted in the same class as Jamar Chase, that people were taking ahead of Jamar Chase. And I mean, imagine that right now. You're playing in the league and you drafted Kyle Pitts ahead of Jamar Chase. You've got to be kicking yourself. But 3 reasons. I mean, he's still 24 years old. I feel like he's been in the league for 6 years. But 24. So there's still so much time for Kyle Pitts. The Falcons, they seem to love him, and then on match day, it's like, no, you're not getting the ball. I don't get it. You brought up a really, really good point, and sort of backs up why I need to be even higher on Kyle Pitts. I mean, I'm actually thinking about moving him up to tight end 5. Purely because he plays golf with his quarterback Michael Penix, and I mean, we've seen, and it's a formula for success. If your wide receiver / tight end is either eating breakfast with or playing golf with the quarterback, he's going to be a stud for fantasy that year. So that is a massive reason, and I'm surprised that he's probably featured in Happy Gilmore too, because I mean, everybody else seems to be featured in that movie. I'm probably going to have to go back and rewatch it and see those two playing in one of the competitions. But I mean, the other one is just Michael Penix, came into the lineup for a very short amount of time last season. But what we did see when Penix came in was him being a gunslinger. So love to see that connection open up to not just Drake London. Love to see Kyle Pitts involved more in that offense as well. Because obviously we know how athletic he is. He can get down the field, and he can absolutely moss the DB, the linebacker. And it's such an odd situation year in, year out to be talking about how disappointing Kyle Pitts was, when as a prospect, he's just amazing. But yeah, love to see that connection. And I mean, the hype can't be any higher right now on Kyle Pitts. I'm sure his rankings, I'm sure on Keep Trade Cut, you'd have seen his rankings must have gone up just in the last few weeks. But I think it's just last chance saloon for Kyle Pitts. I mean, if he doesn't do it this year, I mean, people are going to go, well, he's still only 25. But I mean, how many years do we need to see to prove that, perhaps he's not amazing? Obviously, year one was, but for some reason, it's not repeated. So tight end 11, it's just in that category where I've got him holding on as a tight end 1 because there's a possibility that it does happen again and he becomes good again. But yeah, I'm not holding on hope, and just talk about redraft and just not touching him in redraft. And James, tight end 19, obviously you're feeling that too. And I mean, there's got to be so many guys you've got ahead of him. Yeah, tight end 19, you must have dropped him down this past year. How disappointed were you?
Yeah, so you said last resort, or sort of last chance saloon, but it's last chance saloon, really, because we've just been here so many times before. I think this is what maybe take this into consideration too much, but in ranking players. But I just don't want to have to worry about Kyle Pitts being on my roster. Like, you just can't have him as your starting tight end. So you're just sitting in, you're having him as a backup, and it just feels just wasted that you've got someone that, like you said, people were drafting him ahead of Jamar Chase. So yeah, he was valued so high at some point, and it's just plummeted so much that I'm not interested in. we get fooled by him. We get fooled by the Falcons offense every offseason. There's always something that improves. I think when he was a rookie, I think it was Matt Ryan who was the quarterback, and then obviously Matt Ryan was washed. So now we've got Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota wasn't very good. Now we've got Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder. We've got rid of him. We've got rid of the head coach. Yeah. Now we've got Kirk Cousins, and it just hasn't happened again. So like, why? What's going to change this year? And obviously it's another new quarterback, so there is another reason to have a little bit of hope there. But it's the hope that kills. I'm just not interested in having Kyle Pitts anywhere near my dynasty roster, because it's just a headache that I don't want. There's just no world where I'm ever starting him this season. And for a tight end, if I'm not starting him, then I'm not really interested in having him on my roster. So yeah, if I'm doing a startup and I'm drafting, from scratch, there's 18 tight ends I'd rather have ahead of him, because I'd be way more confident in starting those 18 tight ends than I would Kyle Pitts. And I'm not really drafting a backup tight end, until really late on in the draft, or maybe I'll take a rookie or something like that. So yeah, I think I've just been burnt too many times. 2022 was really bad. Like, I was really burnt by him then. I think that scarred me forever. But I think still in 2023 in my home league, I took him as my number one redraft tight end, and it went horribly wrong, and I've just had enough of that happening to me. So yeah, I think I've got obviously Kincaid ahead of him, whereas you must have him. Oh no, you've got him just after Kincaid, haven't you? Yeah, the likes of Kincaid, Evan Ingram. I've even got Dallas Goedert, Travis Kelce, Brenton Strange, just because I can see them being the number one tight ends on their team, and that's something we can't even say we've had from Kyle Pitts over the last few years. So yeah, there's just more reliability again, and I'm just not interested in being burnt by Kyle Pitts again.
Yeah, sound advice. Definitely not going to fight you on Kyle Pitts. I'm not going to try and get your ranking up. But we will very, very quickly jump into the 2-minute warning. It's going to be the 20-second warning, I feel, because we've not got long left. But these are some of the top traded players on dynastydaddy.com. So really, really quickly, we've got Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin, interestingly, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, and Anthony Richardson are some of the most traded players this week. So we're going to start Chris Olave. So very, very quickly, which side of this trade are you on, James? Chris Olave and James Cook, or Devon Achane?
I'll take the Olave side. I don't have too much difference between Well, James Cook isn't that far down my rankings, as we kind of already touched on. So yeah, if I'm getting a Olave as well, I'll take that side.
Yeah, I think I do lean that side. Achan is more of the elite asset, but I think it's a 2-for-1. And I mean, any running back could get in at any time and lose so much value. So we'll go for the 2-for-1. Terry McLaurin is the second one, James. And I think I know where you're going to go with this. But would you prefer Terry McLaurin or 2 2026 seconds?
Yeah, you know where I'm going. I think if you were, totting up the values, and it probably is fine, but you're looking at 2 seconds that you're going to have to throw a dart, and you hopefully get someone that's anywhere near Terry McLaurin's sort of production level. So yeah, that's just very unlikely to go well. So I'll take the sort of the stable asset in McLaurin.
Yeah, I think whoever managed to buy him for 2 seconds has done really, really well there. Third guy is Kenneth Walker. So this trade was Kenneth Walker plus a 2026 second and a 27 third, or rookie Trevion Henderson.
I think when I was looking at this beforehand, I misread it a bit, but I'll go with the rookie. I think, I don't think that the second and the third bridges that gap enough. I think I have Kenneth Walker as like a 17-18 running back, and Trevion Henderson as a top 8. There's just too much of a gap, I think, for those picks to fill it.
Yeah, I agree. I think had it been a couple of seconds, I could probably sort of work it out, but no, it's easily Trevion Henderson for me. DK Metcalf is the next one. So we've got DK Metcalf or Jameson Williams and 2 2026 thirds.
Yeah, that's close. I don't know. I've just said how much I hate the whole Steelers situation, so I can't really pick that side. I think the value may be with the Jameson Williams side, and obviously, all it takes is for him to have a couple of good games, and that value is going to keep going up. So it's unlikely to really happen with DK. I think he's kind of reached that max, or there's not really much going to change with him. So I think I'll just take the Jameson side, just because it's got those extra picks. But I've already said that I don't really think they'd amount to much. But if you're getting them on top of players I kind of value similarly, I guess that's where I'd go.
Yeah, I agree. I would say exactly the same thing. I've probably got them in a very similar tier. So to get those 2 dart throws, I'll go that side. And then finally, Anthony Richardson. So this is an interesting one. Anthony Richardson or Shador Sanders. And I don't know who's trading all these 26 thirds, but there's 2 26 thirds on the Shador Sanders side. So, James, what side of that trade are you on?
I mean, it's basically Anthony Richardson or 3 third-round picks, because that was what Shador was this year, right? In the end, wasn't he? Yeah. I'm just not ready to give up on Anthony Richardson for that. Like I've obviously said about the frustrating players in the past, like earlier on in this episode. So Anthony Richardson definitely falls into that category. But for 3 thirds or a potential starting quarterback and a couple of thirds, I'd still lean the Richardson side, just because if he was a starting quarterback and Sanders was a starting quarterback, Anthony Richardson is 100% the player you're starting more weeks than you are Shador Sanders, and the 2 thirds could be nothing. So I'd still stick with Richardson, but we're running out of time, and it won't be long before this is a smash the other way around, probably.
I feel like that's the theme tonight, of running out of time, last chance saloon with some of these players. But I tend to lean that way as well. Got so many shares still of Richardson, I can't quite give up hope just yet.
Yeah, not for that.
Yeah. And with that does bring us to the end of tonight's show. Thank you again for tuning in. Be sure to follow us and subscribe on X and at YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard, at Wildcard Dynasty. And join us again for our show next week on Tuesday. Maybe we'll have Mags back, maybe not. You'll have to tune in to find out. Thank you once again. And remember, when you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.